Are you sitting at home during this pandemic wishing you could work remotely? My guest today has started a company to help certain folks find jobs where they can work remotely. So sit back, wash your hands, and get ready for episode 67 of the I Can't See You podcast.
From Studio C, welcome to the I Can't See You podcast with David. He can't see, but he's got a lot to say and a face for radio.
Hello there, and welcome to the I Can't See You podcast. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I really appreciate you joining me today, and I hope you're well. I hope you're washing your hands, keeping your social distance when you are out and about, but mostly I hope you're staying inside and just with your family and not out and about and keeping safe. And Liz, Jane, and I are definitely doing that. Jacob, on the other hand, is out at Target working, so he's out in it. And we are hopeful that he doesn't bring something home with him that we don't want. Jane has been home from New York City for about 12 days now. She got out very early on once her company decided they were going to be working remotely. It was just much more comfortable here to work. She's working from our dining room table. In fact, where she sits at Thanksgiving, she's now doing her work 8 or so hours per day for HL Group based in New York City. And it's actually, I think, been going pretty good for her working here. It wouldn't have been as easy in her apartment in New York. As I've probably mentioned before, she is in a one-bedroom flex. And what that flex means is there's 3 people in the one-bedroom flex, meaning one person gets the bedroom, one person gets the living room, and they build a temporary wall. One person gets the, I don't remember what it was called. I think it was a home office space, and they build a temporary wall. And there's just not a big amount of space for her to work in the apartment. Basically, she has a bed and some dressers in her room, and the common area of the place, there really isn't any other than the kitchen. So it would have been difficult for her to work there. And at this point, I think Liz and I would have been freaking out if she was still up in New York City. So fortunately, she's here working remotely. It's going well for her. Liz has been working remotely. As you probably know, she's a preschool teacher. And it's been going okay, I think. You know, she's been Skyping and FaceTiming with the kids in her class, and I think they seem to enjoy that. It actually, it's kind of fun to listen to the kids, and they get excited. And I got to be honest with you, it seems like some of the parents are pretty excited too. So I don't know if it's breaking up the monotony of the day being with, small kids running around all day. I don't know that I don't know that I would survive if that were the case. If our kids were little and this were going on, it's tough enough now with us. The 4 of us being home. In the apartment, when we downsized, we thought that, all right, well, Jane was getting ready to graduate. Jacob will probably want to move out soon. Well, right now we're all here. And so far, knock wood, it's been going okay. And ironically and fortunately, I met someone at PodFest who is very familiar with working from home. And I'm going to bring her on in a couple of minutes. I've worked from home for quite a while. In fact, only about 4 years of this century have I not worked from home. And that was when we had Salon Supplies and Interiors, which was a beauty supply and salon equipment business. And for those of you who don't know, Liz concentrated on the supply side of it. I concentrated on the equipment side of it. And we had a brick and mortar store for about 4 years. And when we shut that part of it down and we were online for quite a while at 4yearsalon.com, that's pretty much been shelved as well. When working, we shelved the brick and mortar, closed it down, and worked from a home office. Before that, I worked from a home office with Dan when we started digital graphics design in 2004, and I still actually have digital graphic design. Superfan Dan has moved to Florida and moved on to bigger and better things down there. And, maybe one day we'll get to move down there too, Liz and I, and that would be fun to be in the warmth because today it's a little chilly here in suburban Philadelphia. And that does not make me feel good. So anyway, let's get back to what's at hand, and that's working from home. And my guest today is someone who has founded a company called VertForce. And what VertForce does, it helps military spouses, veterans, find vetted remote work. As you can imagine, if you're spouses in the military, how do you get a job when you're moving from one year to the next? You can't go over to Target. Maybe you'll work there for 9 months. And a lot of folks probably won't even think about hiring you because they know you're going to move on. So what Kimber Hill has done when she founded VertForce, she's put all of these jobs into one place. And you're thinking, why is this important to somebody who's blind? One of their partners is Aira. And Aira is an app that you get for your phone that for example, a few months back, everybody was sleeping and I needed the password off of the side of the router. And I usually use Seeing AI or Envision, but where it was, I couldn't get it to read it. And so I thought, well, you know what? I better call Aira. And Aira, for the first 5 minutes of a call, is free. And I knew this wasn't going to take long because I knew where the sticker was on the side of the router. And so basically, you punch a button, pulls it up, they verify your information, and the trained agent reads you the information, and you're good to go. And it's just that easy. And it was probably a 2-minute call from start to finish, if that. And it was just awesome. And I got back on the internet, and it was just so needed at that point because I was in the middle of doing something that was fairly important. I don't remember what it was, but it was. Listen, I wasn't playing. I wasn't playing chess. So Aira is it's a great tool for people who are blind and visually impaired. And again, very helpful when you're out and about. You have somebody they basically have a couple of monitors, one seeing what you're showing them with your phone or the glasses that you may have with the camera on the bridge, or they're just using your phone and helping you read the password from the router when you're at your house, or reading a bottle that may tell you how many times a day or what hours you're supposed to take a medication. And it's just a great tool. And like I said, Kimber's company, VertForce, is a partner with them. And again, that's not all that VertForce does. If you've become a military spouse, but you had a career before that and you were an executive assistant or a web designer or project manager, you can still do that remotely. And VertForce finds vetted remote companies and jobs that you can work for and that you can do. And so you can keep your career. It gives you a sense of purpose while your spouse is out doing the military stuff. And just a great concept. And on the show notes page, you could see the job listings that are posted. So if you're a military spouse or a veteran, go have a look. Or if you're a business that needs something like that, also go have a look. Maybe you'll find your next executive assistant there, or project manager, or even if you're doing a podcast, you need some production help. They have those folks there as well. So without further ado, let's bring on Kimber Hill from VertForce. Kimber, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate you coming on.
David, thank you for having me on your show on the I Can't See You podcast.
Can you tell us about, thinking about how things have been going, especially the last couple of days, you guys sending folks to Aira to become the trained individuals to help folks who are blind or visually impaired along on sometimes in their daily tasks, sometimes getting from point A to point B. I've only imagined these last few days where people are thinking, wow, what could I do if I were stuck at home? And here you have, you can work from your house and anywhere in the world where I just can't even imagine the traveling and the moving and how many times. Have you moved a lot since you've become a military spouse? How many times do you think?
We've moved 3 times in 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
And I absolutely consider myself a remote work specialist. And that's why we founded VertForce. So for those of you who are listening who have never heard about us before, we are the virtual workforce movement, and we're comprised of about 30,000 active duty military spouses. And we partner with quality organizations like Aira, which is kind of how I met you, David,
right,
to provide the military spouse demographic verified, virtual, vetted, remote career opportunities. And with Corona, today in particular has been crazy because we see organizations like Ira, like digital marketing, and things that are impervious to the impact of Corona because they're completely remote, they're completely online. So we've seen a huge uptick in demand for that kind of work. But on the other hand, remote work that is based on industries that interact on site, for example, our real estate virtual assistants, they're having a work slowdown right now because people are not going to look at houses, people are not buying houses, people are not moving right now. So we're seeing some areas uptick, some areas decline, but the overall point here is the power of remote work to keep you in business and to continue to provide your team continuity of work flowing in and to provide your clients continuity of service. It's just something that is, you just have to have it. You've got to do it at this point. If your business is not exercising remote work in any capacity, it's time to wake up and embrace it.
Right. And that was one of the things a few days ago when things were starting, and you see, companies either shutting down because they're, a brick and mortar store, or,
Right.
Having folks like my daughter who works in New York City. She came home and is, now working from our dining room table. And I started to think, I do some affiliate marketing, and I thought, well, maybe people aren't buying things. They don't know when they're going to get paid again. And then I started thinking about you and VertForce and thinking, well, that blind person in Poughkeepsie, New York still has to find the macaroni and cheese in the cupboard and, figure out how long they have to cook it. And, may need, to do the wash and need to figure out the settings or whatever. So you guys and Ira is still something where it's needed, and it's not selling a good, it's helping someone who is always going to need help, whether they're in home because of a virus that's going on and can't get out, or they need it to get out and go to a restaurant or go somewhere or go, read their mail. And again, mail is still coming. So, folks that use Ira to read their mail, they still need that. They still want to know, hey, what bill is this that I might not be able to pay next week? They still know that, and it's so important. And the other thing I was thinking when I was up very late a few nights ago, if I needed something, somebody from Ira was there. If I needed to find something, where I didn't want to go and wake up my wife at 3 a.m,
Right.
which she would have loved. So it's something that, okay, maybe you go to bed and you are based in the U.S. You yourself, right? You're in the U.S.
I am.
Okay.
Right.
So you're in the U.S. now. So maybe at 3 a.m, you're not awake, but somebody who may be stationed in Japan or in the Middle East or wherever, they may be pulling some time at that hour, and there you go. You're helpful. You're helping someone, even though you're half a world away. And so it's
absolutely.
just such an important thing.
Absolutely. And we spend a lot of time preaching that message to business owners who are looking to hire, and even people who just need support for their everyday activities. So for example, if you're a podcaster and you're looking for someone to do your editing for you, or you're looking for a production assistant to roll these processes out to make sure that your podcast is successful, we want you to know that the military spouse demographic is scattered all over the United States and all over the world. There is someone available to support you literally 24/7.
That is great to know. That is great to know, because, and you mentioned a couple of things there as far as podcasting and things like that. So if I wanted to have someone help me out, either edit my podcast, or I needed a virtual assistant, where would I just get in touch with VertForce, or do you funnel folks to a specific company? How does that work?
Oh, that's such a good question. Thank you for asking that. We provide direct staffing services, and we provide subscription staffing services. So that looks like a direct hire program for you, where we pick out the right person for you.
Okay.
Or you're able to use someone on our team if you're not ready to approach an employment partnership, right?
Okay.
but we only source from the military spouse demographic or veteran demographic because I'm a military spouse and I understand how hard it is to maintain a career when you're PCSing from duty station to duty station. So we've created this big, beautiful candidate community. And in that community, we just say, hey, look, we've got another remote work opportunity. Here's the scope. Who wants to apply? And that's how we help you. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can email me, Kimber, Kimber, at VirtForce, VirtForce.us. Or you can go to our job board and post a listing, jobs.virtforce.us. I love to talk to you because we vet every opportunity. We make sure it's legitimate. We make sure that it's a good fit for the military spouse community. And we also want to help you get the most out of it, right? If you're hiring a virtual assistant, if you're hiring a production manager, if you're ditching the brick and mortar and you're going remote and you've got to staff project managers, you've got to staff your whole organization and your operations team, we want to help you do that effectively.
I would imagine that folks that do these specific jobs, whether it's a project manager or maybe that was something that before they became a military spouse, maybe that was their job at a normal 9-to-5 type of job. And that's how that was their expertise. So that's what they want to jump back in for. I would guess that's the case.
You're so right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you also see in the military spouse demographic, you see people pivoting a lot, especially because we spend time moving from duty station to duty station. Maybe at this duty station, I'm going to try to be a hairdresser. And at the next duty station, I'm going to try to get into HR work. And we're just kind of trying on different hats that we think are going to fit this ever mobile lifestyle. But the beauty about remote work is you don't have to pick what's right for that duty station. For example, in our last duty station, we lived in an incredibly rural town. There was no infrastructure. My background has been government contracting and DoD work for many years. I was at least 500 miles from that industry. So what could I have done? I could have been a barista. I could have worked at Michael's. I could have worked at Target. I could have gone to any kind of local commercial contracting place and try to fit myself in there. But it was so rural, I could not stay in my industry unless I could find a remote position in my industry, which is what we specialize in.
Okay. And I guess that it's also difficult, let's say you did get a job at, for any argument's sake, let's say Target, you don't know how long you're going to be in a specific spot. Is that true? And you could move in 6 months. Does it come up quickly or how does that work?
Ideally, the government says, you're going to be here for 3 to 4 years, but there's no guarantee that you're going to be there. And that's why there's a huge stigma around the military spouse community. A lot of on-site organizations, if they find out you're a military spouse, you will not get hired. Someone else will get picked over you, which is ironic because listen to this. In today's economic climate, the longest that an employee typically stays with an organization before graduating, moving on, doing bigger and better things is 4 years. Okay. And that's the longest. That's not the average, that is the longest that someone will typically stay. And that's ironic because that is the average rotation for a military spouse for PCSing. But still, because they know that that's coming and you're not staying past 4 years, you won't, and oftentimes you will not get selected.
And that I think that's tough. Coming from a business background, I've owned a few businesses in my lifetime, and I always tried to hire someone, and you never know, like you say, you never know. First of all, you don't know if somebody's going to be good enough to even want to keep them any length of time, but you never know. If you have somebody good and you can have them for 6 months to a year, it may get you through the next busy season and past that, where you may then have time to go and find someone else if you need to. Most of the businesses that I've had have been ones that are not, highly skilled. It is like being a cashier. I owned a West Coast video franchise from the time I was 21 into my early 30s. You know, you just have to learn the computer, and over the course of a week, you figure that out, especially now because, you know, people know computers more so back then, you know, when I had that business. Um, you know, and the other business I had that had a brick and mortar was a beauty supply and salon equipment store. So, you know, if you had any knowledge, you talked about being a hairdresser, if you had any knowledge of hair care products and salon equipment, you were good. It was good. And, you know, it may just be, you might just need somebody to cover, you know, a few months to cover for something. So again, when you have a quality employee, I always look for the quality, you know, sometimes, like I say, I got them, sometimes I didn't. Um, it's just important, but I get the other side of it. And in this day and age, you know, with everybody getting, you know, sent home, whether they're laid off or they're working remotely, you know, and they don't know where their next paycheck is coming, to be able to work remotely for any business that especially may not be affected. You mentioned real estate folks are affected, and I can't even imagine some of the others even doing, you know, marketing, you know, now that's completely changed. But again, with Ira, it's needed. It's needed every day. Maybe not to help them find a way somewhere, but maybe to, you know, say which one of these bottles is the right medicine I need to
Right.
take,
And
you know?
you and I were talking earlier about even just looking at the serial number on your Wi-Fi unit,
Right. Right. I mean,
pulling,
it's always something you need like that,
yeah,
with folks like that. Yeah. So
exactly. And you don't necessarily have to be leaving the house to use that tool. It's such a valuable piece of technology. It's changing people's lives. What I love is it's supporting you as an explorer, as someone who has low vision. It's supporting you in daily activities. But what we see from the military spouse end is it's supporting our candidate community and giving a lot of our military spouses life purpose, meaning one of the big issues that mil spouses deal with is identity. When you are constantly PCSing every few years, you're forced to make new friends every few years, you're forced to rebuild a home. You are, and I should say not forced, you have the privilege, right? You have the privilege to be married to someone in the service. So let me shift my lingo there. You are able to be a transient person, which I value so much. Now I love it. I love moving. But a big problem that comes with that is maintaining your personal identity. And a big supporting factor for sustaining that identity is having career purpose, and career meaning I don't believe that you are your career. I don't believe that your self-worth is defined by what you do. But when you're able to take on a role other than spouse, other than parent, and use your God-given gifts in whatever area that you appreciate, whether that be project management, business, finance, customer service, I'm trying to think of other areas, in whatever career category supports you, it helps you establish your identity. It helps you see for yourself, I'm more than just a spouse.
right. And it just gives you fulfillment. You know, I can tell you that when we were between businesses and before we moved a few years ago, and it's funny you say you moved a few times in the last 3 years. We lived in the same house. My wife and I this summer will be married 30 years. We've moved
Oh,
twice in those 30 years.
congratulations.
Thank you very much. You know, so we moved once before we had kids, which was great because there wasn't a lot of junk to cart along. And I can't imagine, you know, that you do this often with kids. That, you know, when we moved a few years ago, where we lived for 23 years it was in a development where there were maybe 100 houses, but that development wasn't near anything, and there weren't sidewalks to go to get on a bus or a trolley or a train. So when I was home, I could walk around the neighborhood, but I couldn't go to the store. I couldn't walk into town and get something. And my wife would come home and I'd just start talking. She'd walk in the door and I'd just start talking. Hey, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah. Especially when, before we had kids and we were in this house, and she's like, she just wanted to come home and relax. And, here I am peppering her with questions because I haven't seen another human that day. And, she's like, boy, we got to find something for you to do. And eventually I obviously found something, but, to have that purpose to get up, and again, I get it, being a parent, you have that to a degree because you're responsible for this other human or multiple humans.
Right.
But, to have something where you can be yourself and interact with other adults, because there's one thing, there's one thing to be talking, like baby talk or, no, Johnny, you can't stick your hand in that. There's, obviously you need something like, hey, did you see the game last night? Hey, did you see that new outfit? Hey, whatever. For the same reason, we connected at PodFest. Part of me wanting to go to that was to, show that I could be independent to myself, not to anybody else. I don't usually care what other folks think. I just want to be out there and do as much as I can on my own.
Explore your individuality and explore what gifts you have to give.
Right. And I know one day I'm going to shave and as you saw me, I have a beard. When I shave, I know one day I'm going to shave and I'm going to do something wrong, like miss some big spot or cut something off I shouldn't have. and the other day I shaved and my wife was home. She's like, I'll come in a second and I'll check. I'm like, no, I've shaved the last few times without you being around. I'm okay. Like, if it's bad, I'll fix it tomorrow. That's one thing when you shave, if you mess it up, sooner or later you're gonna have a chance to do it again. And hopefully it's not a dramatic, horrible looking thing that you got to shave the whole beard off. And so it's just a matter of being able to do something and get out there and talk to people that you not necessarily that aren't your friends, that maybe you now live hundreds or thousands of miles away from somebody you met before and your buddies or whatever, but you can't get with them other than on Zoom or whatever. But, now you can make connections in the new place you're at. So, I really get that. I really get that with, with the military spouses. And I just can't imagine watching a couple of shows that I watch on TV. I never really thought about it. Until this, a show, I don't know if you've ever watched the show SEAL Team. I just can't imagine these people go off and they go do these dangerous, crazy things. Like they're going to work, like somebody would get in the car and go to the store or go to the office or whatever. And they're going halfway around the world. They're shooting people and getting shot at. And then they're coming home and then they're like, oh, okay, let's get a pizza. I just can't imagine on the home front what that's like, for the spouse to be there and running the household and, keeping track of the kids and all their schedules and everything else. So, so that in itself is, boy, thank you for doing that. I mean, that is just, I can't even imagine that in itself, but to lose your identity every time you move and have to go out and do all that.
And I will say you don't necessarily lose your full identity, but it is a challenge, and reinventing your career at every duty station can be exhausting. I have a friend, Stephanie, who has wanted to be a X-ray radiology technician, I think is what they're called, forever. Okay. She said, I want to do that. It's my heart. Her husband has been in for over 15 years, and every time they've been stationed somewhere, they've not been near a school where she can pursue it. So she's been waiting for 15 years to do that. He's approaching his 20-year retirement. So get this, he retires. She finally gets to start what she's always wanted to do.
Oh, that's great. That is great.
It's awesome, but it's sad that she had to wait
that long. Right. Exactly. And that's
right.
Going to Orlando, and going to PodFest, somebody had asked me when I got back, she's like, how was it? And I said, oh my God, it was great. I learned a lot. And, one of the things that I've always been interested in, and I've had some difficulty in it because of my vision, trying to do a workaround. I've done work for the National Federation of the Blind on NFB Newsline, which is a service for visually impaired and blind individuals who can't read print. And again, even, like a quadriplegic who may have trouble leafing through a newspaper, or maybe they have dyslexia and can't read properly or whatever. It's available. Newsline is available for folks like that. And so one of the things that I've done is go out and do presentations for Newsline, showing the benefits of it and what you can do and how you can do it and how easy it is to use. And now, because of the way things are, you can do it on your phone, on your mobile phone. There's an app for the iPhone, and you could use the website where all these things are read for you. For example, ESPN's website has all these ads, and it's hard to navigate with a screen reader. But on NFB Newsline, you can navigate it, just go story to story. There's no images. So I've gotten in front of a bunch of people and been able to present to, up until PodFest, maybe 100 people. And I always thought, I'd love to be able to be a public speaker. And, it goes along with, the background of always wanting to be on TV or radio and, now doing the podcast. And when I was at PodFest, at the very end, they allowed you to go up on stage for less than a minute and, what you're most grateful for. And when I got up there, besides the lights, I always tell people, I don't see much, but I see glare perfectly, and it's so irritating and annoying. So when I got up on stage and I was standing up there with the mic in my hand thinking, other than these lights are killing me, this is what I want to do. I want to speak. And by far, that was the largest amount of people I've gotten in front of. And I don't really, again, the lights were blinding me and I can't see to begin with. So I have no idea how many people were in the crowd. I know there were, quite a few people there, even at the very end.
Right.
I thought, I would love to be able to go out and, just talk in front of folks.
Right.
And I've waited, and, again, I'm mid-50s now. So, is that going to be a thing? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe the podcast will help me do it. And
absolutely. The podcast is going to be such a launch pad for you for a public speaking career, for sure.
Yeah. So I get where your friend is coming from. And I think you said her name was Stephanie. I get where she's coming from, because she's been, basically biding her time, waiting, and now boom, it's her chance. And that's outstanding. Before I let you go, I do have a few questions, not really related to VertForce, which when you told me about it and I went back and I started to listen to the podcast, and there's a funny story about that. I started listening in the hotel room and I'm like, VertForce, does that mean green force? Because I love haricots verts, the little French green beans that are real skinny. I love those. And I'm like, oh, VertForce, it must mean green force. And then I'm like, that doesn't sound right. It must not be. And then I realized what it was, and I made myself laugh, and I swore I wouldn't tell anybody, and now I'm telling a lot of folks.
Oh, that's okay.
I started to listen to it in my hotel room, I probably the day I met you or the next day, and I thought, well, I had something to do, so I thought, I'll leave it here and I'll listen on the plane ride home. I got on the plane, I hit the button and it said not available. And I thought, oh my God, I didn't download it. So I didn't get to listen until I didn't get to finish it until I came home. And I was so mad, because you're sitting on an airplane for a couple hours.
You have nothing to do.
Nothing to do, right? And it turns out some of the other podcasts I thought I had downloaded, weren't there either. So I was a little bummed.
Bummer. That has happened to me on more than one occasion. And I always find myself out in the airport lobby frantically trying to download things because I forgot to do it the day before.
Right.
And the Wi-Fi is just never good enough.
Okay.
To download.
Yeah, that is, that was clearly a rookie mistake. Going to PodFest was my first time flying on my own since, for the last 20 years or so.
And for your listeners, that's where David and I met. David, long story, but I'm going to try to synopsis it as quickly as possible. Because I have a relationship with Aira, and we've helped over 40 military spouses get hired with Aira, I knew about Aira and I saw David. He's clearly walking around with the white cane. I can tell that he's visually impaired, and I wanted to talk to him from the beginning. And then I thought, no, I'm afraid I'm going to say something wrong. And then we were in 3 back-to-back sessions together. And I was just thinking, this has got to be a sign. I've got to talk to this guy. So I finally just went up and grabbed him and introduced myself, probably very awkwardly. But that's where David and I met, I was there coordinating the Military Creator Con, which was a mini conference attached to PodFest. And we chatted about Aira. We chatted about doing a podcast collaboration. And, really the reason why is because the military spouse identity issue, one of our favorite success stories with our relationship with Aira and how they support the visually impaired is one of our military spouse candidates came to us and told us after she started working in that role, she found it so fulfilling that she was able to come off antidepressants completely.
Wow,
which
that's
she had been
incredible.
dependent on before. So that's why I wanted to talk to you and why I'm listening to your podcast and why I'm telling all of our military spouse Aira candidates to listen to your show.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, as we've said before when we were talking, and anybody that's listening, if you see somebody that's blind walking around with the white cane, you've got to approach us. I don't know that you're there more than likely. So if you have a question, again, there's some things that you shouldn't do. You don't just go up and grab somebody and say, "Hey, how you doing? I'm so and so." You can obviously wait until we're stopped. One thing that I like to remind folks when we're out and about walking around, obviously we're using our other senses. We're listening to things, trying to hear the traffic. But if we're stopped and, waiting at a traffic light, certainly, or if we're standing in a mall or an airport or whatever, you got to come up to us because we're not going to approach you because we don't know you're there. And so anybody that's listening that has any questions, certainly, come right on over. I will talk about it all day long, probably too long, and you'll be sorry that you did come up to me, but you'll get the answer and then some.
Amazing.
So yes, please do approach. I just have a couple of questions that I just out of
Sure.
curiosity, and if it's overstepping, please let me know. I know we talked earlier. You're based in the U.S. now. Where are you based? Just to
I'm
stay in
in
mind.
Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay, so you're in Jacksonville. Okay. Have you ever been based outside the U.S.?
Not yet.
Not yet. Are you hoping
I,
for that?
I was so hoping we would get Japan
Okay.
for this particular duty station, and my husband not so much.
Okay.
And that has not happened yet, but we're very early in his career. We're in the
Okay.
first 5 years. So if you
Okay.
break that into a 20-year stint, we're in quarter one of this
Okay.
ball game.
Right. And I guess now with the way things are going with the virus and everything, you really don't know how things are going to shake out. And last week, if you had said to me, I had seen something about this company called Envision with these glasses that are kind of like Aira, but it is more kind of like a combination of Aira and Seeing AI. And I thought, wow, these are so cool. And there's not that, the one big drawback for Aira from a lot of blind folks has been the expense. The rate plans, which have certainly come down now. Any call for the first 5 minutes is free, and when you go into Target, it's free. And I had all these things set. Going to before PodFest, I went to VidFest, and I thought, this one guy talked about how he got all sorts of subscribers from just watching him and his wife go to this store buying groceries and stuff like that. And I thought, well, man, mine's more exciting than that. I'm not going to know where anything is. And I thought, I could use Aira at Target one time and then go without using Aira and see how I make out. And it, I can't imagine how funny it would be. I come home with, who knows what instead of deodorant and and all sorts of things that, that people would like. But yeah, that's, I had these questions wondering, ever stationed overseas. So you do have quite a while to go. So I hope when you get to move overseas, it's a place you both want, and and there's not a lot of
Yes.
strife there. So
You and me both.
And how about kids? Do you have kids?
Not yet.
You don't have kids. Okay.
Not yet. We seem to be having a hard time finding the right time.
Okay.
With military and deployments, it goes back to that. It's very much like being a single parent.
Right.
So you don't embark into that journey lightly.
And I guess at this point, I know it's a little bit different, but at this point, VertForce is, where you're spending your time. If you had a child, especially, the little ones obviously need a lot more attention as they grow up. You can, kind of have a little bit more life of your own once they, get to, first grade. But, VertForce, I guess, is something that you're pouring your everything into and keeps you going now.
Oh, absolutely. Every day when I check our candidate community and we see a hashtag hired post or success story, it lights my heart up. And I absolutely, as a woman, don't feel the need for a child right now.
Okay.
Just very transparently there. Of course, our parents on both sides are encouraging us to feel the need for a child. But I've always been very career centered, and I love what we're doing. I love that we've seen over 200 military spouses hired in 18 months. And I love that we're helping military spouses reclaim their identity. And yeah, kids will come. They'll come when they come.
Right. And it would never be soon enough for for your parents and his parents. I get that because I was on that end at one point with
right. And your daughter's in her early 20s now.
Right?
Early
20s now. So yeah, and my son is even older. He's 26. So it'll happen, and it's just again, we let everyone know best places to reach you. Where do they go to check out that you had mentioned where folks can go to look for people they might want to hire? Go over all that information again.
Absolutely. Well, if you're hiring or you're thinking about outsourcing any of your work, give us a call or shoot me an email, kimber@vertforce.us, KIMBER@VIRTFORCE.US. And just as a reminder, VertForce stands for the Virtual Workforce Movement. So if that gives you a little bit better of a mental image of how to remember our name, I hope that it does. We also have the VertForce podcast, where we provide free remote career training. It's targeted to military spouses, but if you're working remotely, the podcast could be of great help to you. And our job board is jobs.vertforce.us. If you are a military spouse, we would love to, or a veteran, we would love to have you in our private Facebook group. And if you join our job board, you will get an email invitation to that group.
Boy, that is some great info, and I'm hoping that some of the listeners here would be looking for, I know in this day and age, a lot of folks are looking to outsource a lot of different things, and I hope that they'll check that out. And Kimber, I really appreciate you coming on today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you about this, and again, great work with VertForce, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, David. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
My thanks again to Kimber for coming on today. I really appreciate it. Again, Kimber Hill from VertForce. Go have a look at their website, vertforce.us. And that's VIRTFORCE.us. And have a look there. I've got links in the show notes page, ican'tseeyou.com/067, ICANTCU.com. Remember, it's only 7 letters, but it sounds like a whole sentence. I really appreciate listening to today's episode. If you would, rate and review. That helps us grow. And remember, if you have any ideas for a show, or you've got some questions for me, or you just want to leave me some hate speech, please reach out, 646-926-6350. Just about anything I'll probably put on, so give it a call, and I really look forward to hearing from you. So if you have an idea for a show or some guests you'd like me to talk to, please reach out and let me know. You can also email me, ican'tseeyou@gmail.com, ICANTCU podcast@gmail.com. is the best email address to reach me. And again, if you see any Amazon links on our site, or if you want something from Amazon while you can't go shopping at a local store, ican'tseeyou.com/Amazon will take you right there. It's an affiliate link. Gives us a couple of bucks, or a couple percent, I should say, of your purchase. So if you have a big purchase, that'd be great. I'd like to say it keeps Liz in chai tea lattes from Starbucks, but she hasn't had those in probably about 10 days. And I think she's going through withdrawal. So hopefully they'll open again soon because I think she probably misses it. Again, I appreciate you listening to today's episode of the I Can't See You podcast. My name is David, at David Benge. Please remember, wash your hands, keep your social distance, and stay safe. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the I Can't See You podcast. Follow David on Twitter. He is at David Benge.